I've really covered my theme already. So Dr. Jim is on his way to being a DTM, it seems, because he's really motivated today for all his speeches. And today his speech is called How to Cook the Perfect Steak. I am so hungry right now, Dr. Jim. Please tell us how this is the way.
Virtual shake. Virtual shake.
Virtual shake.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. I have a presentation for you today that's going to appeal hopefully to some of you. However, if you're a vegetarian, this is not going to be the speech for you, because I want to talk about one thing and one thing only today. It's how to cook the perfect steak. Now, I have probably been buying steaks for the last 20, maybe 25 years, and I do it because I really, really like meat. Now, a steak is a fantastic piece of meat. If you've ever gone to a steak house, a restaurant that focuses on steaks, and had one of their steaks, you know what I'm talking about. I would like to be able to simulate the steakhouse experience at my house. But I'll tell you what, for the last 20 years, I have not been able to do that. Cooking a steak is actually really quite difficult to do. Now, I'm not talking about a skinny steak. I'm talking about a real steak. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's a ½ inch to a full inch thick. It's a big piece of meat. That's difficult to cook. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. One way you can do it is you can go to your stove. You can get yourself a fine pan. This happens to be a cast iron pan, a man's cooking instrument. Okay. You can get this super hot. Once it's super hot, you take your delicious ½ inch to full inch piece of steak and you put it in ow! And it starts to cook. And it starts to smell like you're cooking meat. And that's wonderful. But the problem is, it's such a thick piece of meat, it's very easy to burn the outside of the meat and not have cooked the inside of the meat. Now there's 3 different traditional classifications for cooked meat. One is rare. That means it's still kicking, kids. You touch it, it's cool to the touch, and it's quite red. Second one is medium well done. That means you got a little bit of pink, right? Sorry, vegetarians, gotta have this talk. And finally, it's well done. Well done means it's gray throughout. There's not a bit of pink left. If you burn the outside of your steak, you're never going to be able to get to medium, which is where I enjoy it, or well done. You're going to end up with burnt on the outside, cold on the inside. And that does not make for a good steak eating experience. Fine. I also use the grill, by the way. Don't you be thinking the grill is your way out on this. Because you can burn the outside and leave it raw on the inside just as easily on the grill. You look more manly doing it, yes. But the end result is not terribly satisfying. So what to do about my 20-year problem? Well, I did not have a solution. I was lost. I was alone. And in steak terms, I was sad. I could not simulate the steakhouse experience in my house. Until a good friend took me aside and said, listen, Jim, you've been doing it all wrong all along. Who was my good friend, you say? What was his name? Why, it's none other than Gordon Ramsay. You know Gordon Ramsay, right? He's the guy on all those TV shows that yells at cooks, right? Well, Gordon wrote a book. It's an introduction to cooking book. It's actually very good. It's a very good book. But in that book, he has a recipe for a steak sandwich. Well, to make a steak sandwich, you gotta cook a steak, right? It was interesting because his technique for cooking a steak was unlike mine. It had steps that seemed strange, foreign, and alien to me. But you know, that Gordon guy, he's pretty good at what he does. So I said, hey, let's give it a try. Maybe Gordon Ramsay knows what he's talking about in the kitchen. Whatever. So let me tell you how Gordon Ramsay cooks a steak. With a little modification by me, by the way. Because I took it and kicked it up a notch. What you do is you take your steak, your beautiful, wonderful, ½ inch to full inch thick piece of meat, and you put a little dusting of cornstarch on it, and just a little touch of salt. And then you put it in the freezer for an hour. Well, that doesn't really sound like cooking steak, does it? What's going on there? Turns out to get a good steakhouse steak, what you really want is sort of a crispy crust on your meat. Okay, it's sort of difficult to explain, but that's what a good steakhouse has. If you put whatever, out of it and salt on the outside of it, and you put it in your freezer, freezer is actually sort of a dehumidifier. What it's going to do is it's going to draw any moisture on the surface of the meat out, and it's going to get rid of it. You're going to dry out, ever so slightly, the surface of your meat. That means when you cook it, you're going to get a great crust on that steak. Your mouth is going to jump for joy. Anyway, after an hour, you take it out. You go to your pan, put a little swig of olive oil in it, get it super hot. You'll know it's ready when it starts to smoke. It's time to put the meat in at that point in time. Put your meat flat down in a pan. Leave it there for 1.5 minutes. End of 1.5 minutes, take it out, flip it over, put the other side down for another 1.5 minutes. All you're doing here is you're just giving it some color. You're making it look exactly like it's supposed to look. When you're done with that, you take it off the stove, and then what you do is you take a clove of garlic. You know what a clove of garlic is? It's the big thing. It's the whole shoot mash. And you cut it in half. Put your clove of garlic into your pan, and just a touch of thyme, and you leave them there for 1 minute. What you're doing is you're letting them cook. You're letting them give off that fantastic aroma. When you're done with that, you put your meat back in the pan on top of your half cloves of garlic. So they're sort of bumpy, right? They're sort of resting there. Then you take probably about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of butter. You know what a stick of butter is, right? Chop 1 inch to 1.5 inches and throw it in here in this super hot pan. Guess what's going to happen to that butter? It's going to melt almost instantly. You're going to have a pool of butter in your pan. Take a spoon then, scoop it up, and pour it over the meat. It's going to go over the meat. It's going to go into every nook and every cranny. Then pull your meat off the stove, pop it into the oven, the 400-degree oven, and you're going to leave it there for 17 minutes. When you pull it out, take your little temperature probe thermometer, plug it in. What you're looking for is 140 degrees. If it's 140 degrees, congratulations, your job here is done. You put the pan down, you take a nice big sheet of aluminum foil, you're going to tent it. You know what tenting means? Tenting means you just put it on top and you leave lots of room. The reason you're going to do that is because after you cook meat, what you want to do is let it rest for about 10 minutes. What that allows is all the juices go back into the meat. So when you cut it, you're not leaving your juices all over the table. It's actually in the meat. So sit back and wait for 10 minutes. And you know, this is the hardest part of the whole program because you know how good that's going to be. You're looking at having a memorable mouth performance. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all it takes to cook the perfect steak.
So hungry, that's not even funny. Yeah. Okay, write down some comments for Dr. Jim. You know the deal. Now I need my first evaluator, and we're just diving into table topics. We have 10 minutes, and we're on time in this meeting.